Hey everybody, Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share an update on my experience with the Microsoft Surface Pro 3. As you can see, I've got the SP3 right here before you. This is actually the i3 version, which is what today's video is all about. For those of you that have followed my coverage, you already know how impressed I am with what Microsoft has done here in the third generation, if you will, even though it hasn't been a full 3 years, with the SP line. And that's because the first gen was good, but some compromise, no question about that, to say the least. Second gen improved upon that by fixing what was that, Achilles heel of battery life that the first gen had. And then finally, in the third gen, we got a redesign, higher res screen, larger screen, of course, new chipset, new graphics chipset, and better battery life, a better kickstand, and probably one of the most important elements, a far superior type cover. So a better experience in every way. Of course, it's not a perfect machine. It has its issues, but the i3 version is a very impressive value in my opinion, especially with the discounts that are going on now, which is why I'm making a video about the SP3. And I won't call this revisited because the SP3 is still fresh, and this model only launched in the summer for those of you following the actual launch dates of the SP3 configurations. Of course, I originally had an i5 256 gig version with 8 gigs of RAM, which I did feel was the sweet spot. But if you watched my comparison with the Duo 13, which I'll include a link in the description, I did end up going with the Duo 13 simply because it was a better device pound for pound in terms of my personal needs. However, once the i3 model launched, and considering, yes, there is a lower end processor in here, but for the day-to-day computing that at least any low voltage computer is going to deliver for me, I felt it was a good compromise. Of course, $799 isn't inexpensive for this device, but when you compare it to the field of tablets, even what Apple is about to announce, possibly an iPad Pro 12.9 that will launch sometime next year, it won't be this year, being that I think they are having trouble dealing with demand for the iPhone 6, or at least that's what the Wall Street Journal is reporting. But even on a tablet side, this is a beautiful device. Now, is it a little bit heavy, bulky? Yeah, at 1.5 pounds, it is definitely a large tablet, but it does have a larger screen than what is generally out there. And when you compare it to what even Samsung does in their 12+ inch tablets, both Pro and Note, which I've covered, which are great devices, but again, a mobile operating system, not a full OS like you get here in Windows 8.1, which in my opinion has all the polish that you could possibly need, both on the tablet side and on the, of course, more important to me and most users, desktop side. With the mobile version, I say really the tablet version of this OS, yes, it does pale in comparison when it comes to applications if you're going to put this against Android or iOS. But it is catching up, and the fact that it is a full-blown desktop computer, even though it has Ultrabook innards, so keep in mind this isn't a video editing gaming powerhouse, but it still can do those things in light forms easily. It really is a best-in-class device. Now, keep in mind, pricing has softened on this. You're now looking at being able to pick this up through Staples with a current sale, I think, that's going on, as well as even through just having EDU discounts and different promotions at different retailers. The retail price has dropped, so that $799 has now moved somewhere in the 600s, and that's why I'm addressing it. If you do a Google, it is your friend, and do a little bit of searching, you will find what I'm talking about. And I'll include any links that are applicable that I can. But the point is that this really is the best machine money can buy right now if you need to maximize not only your budget when it comes to performance, but also your experience, because I have to say, it's about as bug-free as a Surface can be. In fact, the i5 and i7, or I should say really just the i7 configuration, took a lot of heat for having issues specifically with throttling, and a lot of people just blame the fact that it was too much power for this incredibly thin chassis that this is developed around. And it is a great, well-built machine, incredible build quality, I would say. Cameras work very nicely. that kickstand, really best in the business, the only in the business. I mean, where you can literally take this thing down to a completely different experience when you're using that included stylus. Now, there's no question, I think Microsoft took a step back with this stylus, but for the average user, that's not going to really be a step backwards from what they had in Gen 1 and 2. That is an advantage to Gen 1 and 2, in my opinion at least. Some will disagree, but N-Trig is not that bad. I think it gets a much worse reputation than it really deserves for its overall performance. But what I can tell you is that Microsoft continues to improve the actual experience with the pen, and in order to compensate for the fact that they did, in my opinion, take a step back, they did integrate things like being able to quickly access OneNote with a click of that purple button, which is a nice feature. I've covered that in the past, but these are rudimentary things. The point is, if web browsing, photo editing, like I said, light video editing, light gaming are things you want to be able to do, this is going to be able to do it. Guess what? Every other Android, every other competing tablet, Apple tablet, really cannot do what this will approach. And even what Apple is about to announce is not going to approach the functionality of this device, again, pound for pound, price included, taken into account. You've got a USB 3.0 port, expandable storage with the micro SD card slot right here, which right now supports up to 128 gigs, but you know as well as I, because this is a PC, once we see higher storage capacity cards at lower prices, which will happen, that's the trend, much like 4K TV pricing, not to get comical here. The point is that this is going to be taken up to even a greater size. So yes, 64 gigs of internal storage out of the gate isn't going to be everyone's cup of tea, but if you are in the business of trying to find a great tablet at I would say a great price, nothing beats the i3 Surface Pro 3 right now. And I mean that in every way. I mean, you've got DisplayPort out, like I said, a full-size USB port over here. What tablet is going to give you this much power? Now, I did just cover a 32-bit Windows 8 tablet, that Winbook TW100, which gives you an incredible amount of performance for $200. Of course, no keyboard there, and the keyboard for $50 that you can pick up doesn't come anywhere near to the experience you get with the SP3. But that's a completely different class of machine. The point I'm really making here is that when you compare this to the mobile competition, again, Android or Apple, and all of you that follow my channel know how much I like Android products, phones and tablets, especially when compared to the competition that Apple brings to the table. At the end of the day, the reality is that this still beats it. I can't in any way tell you, I would be lying to say otherwise, from every performance element. And I'm never going to hit a wall with a limitation like I will with a mobile platform. And if I want to have that clean look of being in the tablet world, it's there. Yes, infancy, but growing. And Microsoft is certainly not going to give up on this product. There have been some really false rumors about Microsoft walking away from the Surface lineup. I don't see that happening for a very long time. They've established new standards. They've increased competition in their own business. They've pushed the standard of quality to a higher level. The problem has really been all about marketing. I mean, remember people in suits doing acrobatic moves? I don't think people really understood that Microsoft should have been marketing that this thing can outperform any mobile tablet, as well as now, at least what they've realized, the MacBook Air. And this can, especially if you take a step up to the higher end configurations. That's if a lot of those throttling issues and other issues, some battery life issues, have been addressed. To my knowledge, everything has been working quite well. Take a look at the forums. That's where I always look to if I'm not experiencing something directly. You've got to see what other people have, because not every unit is the same. But my experience since launch, which I should have shared frankly earlier, has been stellar. Yes, have there been hiccups, but they have been addressed in updates, of course, through Windows. And So far, battery life is great. It's a completely competent machine. If you're wondering whether or not it stacks up with the i5 256 with 8 gigs of RAM, it certainly isn't as, I would say, speedy, not as fast, but when it comes to what it's capable of doing because of the limitations of the type of processor it has, it's as competent, and that's what was relevant to me. In fact, it's a conversation I've had with a lot of different users. So when you look at the fact that now this tablet is in the same price range with discount as something like the Samsung, Galaxy Note 12 line, or the Pro line in the 12-inch size, at least where it was at retail launch, it's pretty impressive. Especially, remember, 64 gigs of storage here. There, you're not seeing that. And you are getting pen integration that many would argue is far superior, even though I do enjoy the Wacom experience more on basically any platform as opposed to in Trig from using both. The Duo 13 used in Trig as well. So the point is that I did have to walk away from the i5 version, but the i3 brought me back in because I knew that at the end of the day, especially when combined with the type cover, you really are looking at a tablet that can replace your laptop. And at the price point of the i3, it can easily also replace your Android or Apple tablet. So this is really all about practicality, functionality, and the capability and experience that a device can deliver, because it's really got to be able to do all of those things. And this does it competently. For those of you that hate Windows 8, 8.1, there isn't going to be much of an argument to be made. But I don't see this as being about hating an OS. It works. It does what it promises. It has more compatibility with software than any platform in the world. This is not a new argument. The balance of the processor and 4 gigs of RAM here does make it capable of doing a lot. And it does share the same graphics processor, chip, I should say, with its counterparts, unless you step up to the higher end models. So that means that if you do want to game, you can. Again, gaming, light stuff. We're talking about Team Fortress 2, light Steam titles, you're safe. If you're going to try to play current games, that's not what this is designed for. So for a student, a professional, whatever it may be, this can replace your laptop. It can also replace your Android or iOS tablet. So the Duo 13 now, not in the active stable anymore. I still love that machine, unique, especially it's the end of Sony's lineage. But the SP3 in the i3 64 gig config, especially as the price continues to drop, please go ahead and tell me in the comments what actually beats it. Because yes, there is a lot of competition from other manufacturers that Microsoft traditionally only sold licenses to for Windows. But they just don't compete when it comes to overall build quality, specs, and now price point, because Microsoft has that leverage on manufacturing. Come on, one of the biggest companies in the world is easily going to be able to beat PC manufacturers when it comes to squeezing the numbers. And that's why you see refurbed Surface Pro 1s now going for $250 on any given day from Best Buy through their refurb selling site. So unfortunately, marketing, again, a big problem, but the SP3 doesn't have that issue. It shouldn't. I wish the marketing was better. The commercials are an improvement, certainly. Again, only aimed at the MacBook Air, but with this price point, they should be looking at everybody, not just another computer manufacturer, because this really, if I had to travel with one tablet, this would be it. Granted, I love my Galaxy Tab S 10.5. That thing has the best display on the market right now, even though this has the same resolution, larger screen, so higher pixel density with that tablet. I've got, a Super AMOLED that arguably looks better than many 4K television displays just because of the difference in display technology. And if you take a look at some forums, you'll see that a lot of 1080p AMOLED displays look better than or comparable to, at the very least, 4K displays. And that's coming from me, someone who's owned a 4K display for quite some time. But this tablet just does an incredible job at everything. Again, not a perfect machine. You will run into an occasional blue screen of death. It does still happen, but the frequency is like once every 5 months for me. That's literally what it's been. I'm talking, of course, between the i5 and now the i3. So I've always liked the Surface Pro 3, all of the generations, frankly, but this one really does take the cake, whether you're web browsing, split screening, multitasking. In fact, it's the platform with which I capture all of my audio for all of my videos. I do use a little Surface Pro workstation with the dock, another must-have accessory for this generation as well, for those of you wondering. Absolutely get it if you're fully vested, because it does turn it into a complete desktop with everything you need in a compact form factor that, again, no manufacturer matches. So that's why I like what Microsoft has done here. You get a stock product with stock performance. It is the nexus of the PC world, and hopefully Microsoft will eventually start making some desktops. And I want to again reiterate that no matter what Apple announces, this is still going to be a better product than the iPad 2 Air or the iPad Pro that they're going to launch, simply because I know that it's not going to be able to touch pricing on this, and this will still be just as competent as whatever they launch, even in 2015. Yes, I'm making that sort of commitment, especially considering it'll probably be half the price by then, unless Apple does something very aggressive with pricing. But no question, this beats the new iPad Air at its base of always $500, even if they bump up the capacity of storage. And I don't care even if we see a 5K display on the iPad Pro. That is not going to be a reason to outdo this sort of device at half the cost. But again, if you have thoughts about that, go ahead, post them in the comments. Hope you all enjoyed this video. Again, a lot of praise for the Surface Pro 3, but remember, specifically in the i3 64 gig variant. That doesn't mean that the other versions aren't good, don't get me wrong. The 512 is a beast, but when it comes to performance, pound for pound, ounce for ounce, the i3 64 kills everything from every manufacturer with any operating system. Again, if you don't want something this big, then that's where you definitely need to look to the mobile OS world. I wouldn't recommend a lot of the 8-inch tablets, although I may start reviewing some of the 8-inch Windows tablets, because they are becoming more compelling than they were in their first and second gens. Always have been a fan of UMPCs, so great to see them finally affordable and powerful, like Microsoft's, or excuse me, I meant to say the Winbook at Micro Center, the TW801 looks promising at its price. But again, SP3 i3 64 gig, the way to go if budget and performance and experience is all you care about. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. And of course, as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.